Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Generals are being held in Gaza today. Funerals are being held in Gaza today after Israeli airstrikes killed at least 24 people on Saturday, despite the U.S.-brokered ceasefire that began October 10th. Gaza's government media office says Israel's violated the truce nearly 500 times in 44 days. Meanwhile, UNICEF reports Israel's killed 2 children every day during the ceasefire. At least 67 children have been killed in Gaza in recent weeks. This is Ahmed Abu Shawish, whose relatives were killed in Israeli airstrikes over the weekend.
What's the reason? Nobody knows. Aren't we supposed to be in a truce? We're looking at the house. We've been trying to forget this scene for a month. We are starting to go back to our normal life. How are we supposed to go back to normal life? We are back to martyrs, back to destruction, back to injuries. What's the reason? We're confused. No one knows.
Meanwhile, in Lebanon, an Israeli airstrike on a Beirut suburb Sunday killed 5 people and wounded 28. According to the Lebanese Health Ministry, Israel claims it assassinated Hezbollah's number 2, the acting chief of staff. The attack comes despite a U.S.-brokered ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel went into effect last year.
There is a ceasefire under international auspices led primarily by the United States of America. Since then, and since the announcement of the agreement and the halt of military operations, the Israeli enemy has remained persistent and addicted to continuing its aggression, targeting buildings, people, and civilians. And you know that this area is a civilian area.
The U.S.'s top military officer will visit Puerto Rico today as a U.S. Navy warship dispatches to the Caribbean. The visit by General Dan Kane, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, comes as the Trump administration set to formally designate Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his government allies as members of a foreign terrorist organization, the Cartel de los Soles. The entity is not actually a cartel, is instead a reference to military officers and officials allegedly involved in corruption and other illegal activities in Venezuela. Reuters is reporting the U.S. is also considering a new phase of covert operations in Venezuela. It would be a major escalation after U.S. airstrikes on alleged drug boats in recent weeks have killed more than 80 people. Meanwhile, 6 airlines have canceled their flights to Venezuela after the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, warned of a worsening security situation and heightened military activity in the region. U.S., Ukrainian, and European officials are meeting in Geneva, Switzerland, to discuss the U.S. proposal to end Russia's war on Ukraine. The 28-point plan was negotiated by U.S. and Russian officials without the involvement of Ukraine. Reuters reports European negotiators submitted a modified version of the plan that reverses some of the proposed limits to the size of Ukraine's military, as well as some territorial concessions. On Sunday, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky once again praised the United States and President Trump after Trump wrote on social media, quote, "Ukraine leadership has expressed zero gratitude for our efforts," unquote. Meanwhile, Russia's continued deadly attacks on Ukrainian civilians, including a drone strike on Kharkiv on Sunday that killed 4 people and wounded 17 others. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani met with President Trump at the Oval Office on Friday. During the meeting, President Trump repeatedly praised Mamdani and said he would feel, quote, very confident that he can do a very good job, unquote. President Trump also said he would feel comfortable living in New York under Mamdani's leadership. Speaking to reporters, Mamdani maintained his past criticisms of President Trump.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
On Sunday, Zohran Mamdani doubled down on his views that President Trump is a fascist and a despot in an interview with NBC's Meet the Press.
Do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do?
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement about the politics that has brought us to this moment.
We'll have more on Mayor-elect Mamdani's meeting with President Trump after headlines. Several Democratic lawmakers have filed police complaints after President Trump called for them to be put to death for what he called seditious behavior. Trump's threat came after 6 lawmakers who are veterans of the military or CIA called on active-duty service members to refuse illegal orders. Congressmembers Jason Crow, Chris Deluzio, and Chrissy Houlihan told the U.S. Capitol Police that Trump's call for their execution has undermined their personal safety while putting the lives of congressional staffers at risk. Crow released audio of death threats phoned into his offices, while Deluzio reported his congressional offices in western Pennsylvania received bomb threats. On Friday, Trump doubled down on his threats, accusing the Democrats of, quote, sedition at the highest level, unquote. President Trump denied federal disaster aid to thousands of Chicago residents, even though his administration documented extraordinary damage from 2 major storms this summer. That's according to Politico, which reports it's the first time since at least 2007 that any president has refused to help residents recover from such extensive damage to their homes. Trump's denial stunned former FEMA officials. It comes after Trump said Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson should be jailed over their resistance to Trump's surge of federal immigration agents and National Guard forces into the Chicago region. In Oregon, federal immigration agents forced a 17-year-old high school student from his vehicle and abducted him as the teen took a lunch break Friday. Video shows masked ICE agents smashed the driver's side window of a car being driven by Christian Jimenez, a senior at McMinnville High School, who told them he was a U.S. citizen, to which an agent replied, "Get out of the car, and I don't care." Jimenez's brother says the teen was racially profiled and injured by shattered glass. He was taken to an ICE facility in Portland and released later that day. He's been charged with interference or obstruction of an investigation. The U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily restored Texas's new congressional map that's designed to allow Republicans to win up to 5 additional House seats in next year's midterm elections. On Friday, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito paused a lower court ruling which stated the new map was an illegal racial gerrymander. The High Court has asked plaintiffs to respond by today before a final ruling on the congressional map. In Nigeria, 50 kidnapped students escaped their captors on Friday after gunmen stormed a Catholic boarding school and abducted over 300 children and 12 teachers last week. The Christian Association of Nigeria says the children who managed to escape have been reunited with their families. Now, a major military-led search and rescue mission is underway to find the remaining children and teachers. Last week, gunmen stormed another boarding school and abducted 25 schoolgirls and killed the vice principal. The recent kidnappings have prompted officials to close 47 schools in northern Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu has also ordered the hiring of 30,000 more police officers, but Nigerians are calling for officials to take more action.
We've seen our old women being kidnapped, being robbed in this country that we call Giants of Africa. It's so bad. And the current government, they are not doing anything to what is happening.
The G20 summit in South Africa concluded Sunday. It was the first time the meeting was held in the African continent. The U.S. boycotted the meeting, citing false allegations that South Africa is mistreating its white minority Afrikaners. Leaders gathered at the summit adopted a joint declaration to address the climate crisis and other global challenges without input from the United States. The White House claimed South Africa had, quote, weaponized their G20 presidency to undermine the G20's founding principles, unquote. Meanwhile, Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, declared the G20 summit in South Africa a success.
President Trump has been demonstrating this for several months now. He has already withdrawn from UNESCO and the World Trade Organization. He is attempting to preach the end of multilateralism in practice, trying to strengthen unilateralism. I believe multilateralism will prevail.
President Lula had flown in from Brazil. In Belém, Brazil, the UN climate summit, known as COP30, has concluded without an agreement to phase out the use of coal, oil, and gas, which are by far the largest contributors to global climate change. More than 80 countries had supported a transition away from fossil fuels, but they were blocked by oil-producing nations, including Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The U.S. boycotted the summit. This is Irene Vélez-Torres, Colombia's environment minister.
The root cause of this problem is fossil fuels. How are we dealing with that? How are we going to come out from this COP to say and to tell the people that we deny the most basic scientific truth, which is that the fossil fuels are the cause of more than 80% of the emissions that are generating climate change?
The COP30 agreement also makes no new commitments to halt deforestation, nor does it address global meat consumption, another major driver of global heating. More than 1,600 fossil fuel industry lobbyists and 300 industrial agriculture lobbyists attended COP30. Meanwhile, the Trump administration did not send a formal delegation after the White House in January withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement for the second time. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. And former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has been arrested after he tampered with his ankle monitor while under house arrest. The arrest was ordered by Brazil's Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes over fears Bolsonaro would attempt to escape his compound days before he's heading to prison. Back in September, Bolsonaro was sentenced to 27 years in prison for plotting a military coup against Brazil's current president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.